You know, I've been thinking a lot lately about how we carry so much weight on our shoulders without even realizing it. We walk through our days convinced that we have to have everything figured out, that we need to be strong enough to handle every single thing life throws at us completely on our own. And somewhere along the way, we started believing that needing someone, that wanting companionship, that longing for a love that feels like home was somehow a weakness. But that's just not true. God didn't create us to walk through this world alone, and I don't just mean that in some poetic way that sounds nice but doesn't really touch the places where we hurt. I mean it in the most practical, everyday sense of the word. When he looked at Adam in that garden, surrounded by all the beauty of creation, he said something that should change how we think about relationships forever. He said, "It is not good for man to be alone." Not, "it's okay," not, "it's manageable," not, "you'll get used to it eventually." Not good. And if the creator of the universe, the one who spoke stars into existence and set the oceans in their place, if he says something isn't good, then we need to pay attention to that. Because loneliness isn't just an inconvenience we're supposed to push through with a smile on our face. It's something God himself recognized as a gap that needed to be filled. Now, I want you to really hear what I'm saying here, because this isn't about desperately searching for someone to complete you like you're half a person without them. This is about understanding that partnership, real partnership, is part of how God designed us to experience his goodness in this life. And I know some of you have been waiting for a long time. I know some of you have watched friends get married, watched family members find their person, and you've smiled and celebrated with them while quietly wondering when it's going to be your turn. You've probably even questioned whether there's something wrong with you, whether you missed some crucial step, whether God somehow forgot about you in the middle of blessing everyone else. But what if I told you that your waiting hasn't been empty? What if every single day you've spent working on yourself, learning who you are, growing in your faith, healing from past hurts, what if all of that has been preparing you for something so beautiful that it required this exact amount of time to get you ready for it? See, we live in a world that tells us everything should happen instantly. We can order food and have it at our door in 30 minutes. We can send a message to someone on the other side of the planet and get a response in seconds. We've become so accustomed to immediate results that waiting feels like punishment. But God doesn't work on our timetable, and that's actually a blessing, even when it doesn't feel like one. Because the person he's preparing for you, the one whose life is going to intersect with yours in a way that changes everything, they're on their own journey right now too. They're learning things they need to learn. They're becoming who they need to become. They're being shaped and molded just like you are. And when the time is right, when both of you are ready, when the season shifts into alignment, that meeting is going to happen in a way that feels less like coincidence and more like divine orchestration. I've seen it happen too many times to call it anything else. I've watched people who had almost given up on love suddenly encounter someone who fits into their life like the missing piece they didn't even know they were looking for. And it's never random. It's never just luck or good timing. There's always this sense that something bigger was at work, that invisible threads were being woven together long before two people ever said hello to each other. The Bible talks about this in Ecclesiastes when it says, "There's a time for everything, a season for every activity under the heavens." A time to plant and a time to harvest, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, and yes, a time to embrace. Your season is coming, and I need you to hold on to that truth even when it feels like you're still in the middle of winter watching everyone else enjoy spring. Because here's what happens when you meet the person God has for you. It's not just about finally having someone to share your life with, though that in itself is a beautiful gift. It's about discovering parts of yourself you didn't know existed. It's about being challenged to grow in ways you never would have on your own. It's about learning what it means to love someone not because they're perfect, but because they're perfectly suited to walk alongside you through this messy, complicated, beautiful life. A real soulmate doesn't show up to rescue you from your problems. They show up to face life with you, to be your partner in navigating both the storms and the sunshine. They don't complete you like you're an unfinished project. They complement you. They bring out the best in who you already are. They help you see yourself through eyes of love and acceptance. And that kind of relationship, that depth of connection, it has the power to redirect your entire life. Not because you lose yourself in another person, but because together you become capable of things you could never accomplish alone. I'm reminded of how the Bible describes marriage as two becoming one flesh, and for a long time I think a lot of us misunderstood what that meant. We thought it was about losing our identity, about merging so completely with another person that we cease to be individuals. But that's not it at all. It's about unity of purpose, about two separate people with their own gifts and callings and dreams choosing to intertwine their lives in a way that honors both of them while creating something entirely new. It's about partnership in the truest sense of the word. And when you find that, when you experience what it's like to have someone who sees you, really sees you, who knows your weaknesses and loves you anyway, who celebrates your victories and mourns your losses as if they were their own, it changes the direction of your life. Not because you lose yourself in another person, but because together you become capable of things you could never accomplish alone. Now, I know some of you are thinking, but I've been hurt before. I've trusted before and it ended badly. I've opened my heart and had it handed back to me in pieces. How am I supposed to believe that this time will be different? And I want to acknowledge that pain because it's real and it matters. Every disappointment you faced, every relationship that didn't work out, every time you thought you'd found the right person only to discover you were wrong, all of that leaves marks. But here's what I need you to understand. Those experiences, as painful as they were, they taught you things you needed to learn. They showed you what you don't want. They clarified your values. They revealed patterns you needed to break. They prepared you to recognize the real thing when it finally shows up. And more than that, they brought you to a place of deeper dependence on God. Because when human love fails us, and it will sometimes because we're all imperfect people trying our best, that's when we discover that there's a love that never fails. There's a love that's patient and kind, that doesn't envy or boast, that isn't proud or rude or self-seeking. 1 Corinthians 13 describes this kind of love, and while it's often read at weddings, I think it's actually meant to remind us of God's love for us first. Because before we can love another person well, we have to know what it feels like to be loved completely. We have to experience what it means to be accepted not because of what we do or how we perform, but simply because we exist. And when you know that love, when you've let it sink deep into your bones and heal the broken places inside you, then you're ready to receive the kind of human love that reflects it. You're ready for a soulmate who doesn't just make you feel good, but who actually helps you become more of who God created you to be. That's the kind of love that changes the direction of your life. Not because it takes you away from your purpose, but because it propels you toward it with someone walking alongside you. I want to talk for a minute about what it looks like when this person enters your life, because I think we often have these Hollywood expectations that don't match reality. We think there's going to be fireworks and overwhelming passion and this instant knowing that this is the one. And sometimes it happens that way, sure, but more often it's quieter than that. It's a gradual realization that you feel at peace with this person in a way you've never felt before. It's noticing that conversations flow naturally, that silences feel comfortable instead of awkward, that you can be yourself without pretense or performance. It's discovering that someone else's happiness has become important to you, not in a codependent way, but in a healthy way that makes you want to be better, do better, give more. And as this connection deepens, you start to notice shifts in other areas of your life too. Maybe you find courage you didn't know you had because someone believes in you. Maybe you start pursuing dreams you'd shelved because someone reminds you that it's not too late. Maybe you heal from wounds you'd been carrying because someone's patient love creates a safe space for you to process and grow. This is what I mean when I say a soulmate changes the direction of your life. It's not a dramatic pivot where everything you knew gets thrown out the window. It's a recalibration, a course correction, a gentle steering towards wholeness and purpose that happens naturally when you're in partnership with the right person. And here's the beautiful thing about God's timing in all of this. When He brings someone into your life, it's never going to derail His plans for you. It's never going to pull you away from your calling or distract you from your purpose. The right person will always enhance what God is already doing in and through you. They'll be a partner in your spiritual journey, not an obstacle to it. They'll encourage your relationship with God, not compete with it. They'll make you more of who you're meant to be, not less. And if you've ever been in a relationship that did the opposite, that made you feel smaller or pulled you away from your faith or caused you to compromise your values, then you already know the difference I'm talking about. You already know what it feels like when something isn't aligned with God's best for you. So trust that feeling, trust that discernment, and trust that when the right person shows up, you'll recognize them not because they're perfect, but because being with them feels like coming home to yourself and to God at the same time. I want to pause here and encourage you to do something if this message is speaking to you. If you found encouragement in these words, I'd love for you to subscribe to Sacred Path to Divine Light, because we're building a community of people who are seeking God's truth in practical, real-life ways. And I'd also love to hear from you in the comments. Share your story, share your hope, share what you're learning in this season of waiting, because your words might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Now, let's talk about preparation, because I think this is where a lot of us